Theoretical models of disability. Accessibility begins with awareness. To begin understanding disability challenges and technologies, you will first learn about theoretical models for understanding disability. These models provide a reference point for how society or organizations view disability. Each model has its strengths and weaknesses, and it is important to note how each model's viewpoint affects people living with a disability. We will focus on 7 models. The 7 models are medical model, social model, biopsychosocial model, economic model, functional solutions model, social identity or cultural affiliation model, charity model. This section will briefly cover all 7 models, but we'll dive deeper into 3 major models: medical, social, and biopsychosocial. Let's begin by exploring the medical model. The medical model views disability as biological impairments caused by medically diagnosed genetic disorders, disease, trauma, or other health conditions. The disability is treated as a biological problem that lowers the quality of life and requires professional medical treatment and care. One strength of the medical model is that it explicitly acknowledges that a biological condition places an individual at a disadvantage compared to most of the population by providing clear criteria for diagnosis. When deciding who should receive government assistance, a clearly defined set of criteria helps inform those decisions. While this is beneficial in some settings, disability advocates cite 4 major weaknesses of this model. The first weakness of the medical model is that it focuses exclusively on the person's biology. Typically, this viewpoint overlooks the impact of design decisions in a social environment. For example, a person who cannot use their legs has a biological limitation, but it isn't their fault that they can't enter a building without a ramp or elevator. In this case, the problem is the building's design. The designer failed to keep in mind the diversity of humans when creating the entrance to a building. Second, the medical model assigns an individual with a stigmatizing label, making them feel inferior to the rest of the population. There is a psychological impact to this kind of distinction. Third, when medical definitions determine who receives certain benefits, people who do not fit within the defined definitions may be denied the benefits that they need. There is a danger that the definitions might be too narrow and too exclusive for some people with disabilities. Finally, if individuals are required to prove that they have a qualifying disability according to some predefined list of medical conditions, this requirement adds inconvenient bureaucracy to their lives. Having to prove one's disability over and over is time-consuming and can be very dehumanizing. Next is the social model. This model views disability not as an inherent human characteristic, but as a consequence of environmental, social, and attitudinal barriers. If we design the environments to minimize or eliminate barriers to access, then individuals with disabilities will not be disabled in terms of access to and participation in the world. The social model emphasizes the human rights of people with disabilities to participate in society in meaningful ways. People who make accessible websites, buildings, consumer products, and transportation systems are doing their part to ensure that the environments they create are not disabling for people with different physical abilities. The resulting designs are often better for everyone, not just for people with disabilities. The big picture with the social model is that society can be more welcoming, with a higher quality of life for all, if the effort to design with accessibility in mind is made. While this model combats the narrowly focused and exclusive nature of the medical model, the social model can de-emphasize the physical reality of a disability. Critics argue that a person's disability can be an important part of one's identity, and it shouldn't be minimized to the point that people are afraid to talk about it. Accepting and owning one's disability can be very healthy from an emotional and psychological perspective. Next is the biopsychosocial model. The biopsychosocial model examines the interconnection between biology, psychology, and socio-environmental factors and their influence on health and human development. It recognizes that a disability is a complex and multifaceted concept and incorporates the perspectives of both the medical and social models. This model can be confusing and misleading to use correctly. It can be vague, suggesting that biology and psychology are separate fields, while including societal factors. However, it certainly contains strengths in its application. This model's more comprehensive view considers the biological and psychological effects of disability on an individual, in concert with the larger picture of the effect society has on people with disabilities. Let's summarize the strengths and weaknesses of 4 more models: the economic, functional solutions, social identity, and charity model. Next is the economic model. First, the economic model describes disability through its financial impact on an individual unable to meet the added expenses of their disability. Its strength is that it recognizes the effect of bodily limitations on work and the need for support and accommodations for a person's disability. One critique from disability advocates is that it can stigmatize people with disabilities as a burden on society if they need financial assistance with medical or therapeutic equipment, transportation, housing, or other things. Next, the functional solutions model focuses on the results of accessible environments. The weakness of this model is that it focuses on the individual and not the larger social context. The strongest aspect of this model is that it provides solutions to real-world challenges while sidestepping the uncomfortable implications of disability within society. Next is the social identity or cultural affiliation model. The social identity or cultural affiliation model is centered on a sense of belonging, self-acceptance, and empowerment of an individual with a disability. While this can be viewed as exclusionary, it naturally exhibits a solid cultural affinity, empathy, and understanding from others. Finally, the charity model. The charity model's strength lies in generating empathy. Unfortunately, it can be seen as offensive in certain contexts, as well as being slow to progress towards true equity. However, the true strength lies in producing accessibility advocacy and genuine assistance. To conclude, each of the 7 theoretical models of disability influences the community or organization applying them. Despite their differences, it is critical to understand and identify each model's advantages and opportunities. Use this knowledge to expand overall awareness of disability and implement accessible practices. For further study on this subject, check out the course resources. In our next section, we'll explore disability categories and associated barriers in the digital and built world.